Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for today's webinar. Thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedules. I'm just going to wait a few more minutes to allow a few people to jump on. I know this webinar had a lot of sign-ups, so we're just waiting for those people to jump on as we speak. So we're just going to give it a couple of minutes for those guys to jump on. Brilliant. I can see a few more people attending now. Just give it a few more seconds before we start. Brilliant. And let's begin. Brilliant. So thank you again for joining us today and taking time out of your busy schedules and for joining us for this webinar today on sourcing from India. I'm Chris Workman. I'm the PR and Marketing Manager for the Giftware Association, and we're joined today by Aditi from Kalara, who's going to be talking about sourcing from India and everything that goes with that, any of the pitfalls as well, and an overview of Kalara as a company, what they do and how they can help your business. So before I hand over to Aditi, a bit of virtual housekeeping. The webinar is recorded, so should you need to nip out or have to rush off anywhere, then you can re-watch it. It will be hosted on our resource library, which is a great place to find lots of other resources for your business, but you'll be able to re-watch it at your own leisure then. That if you do have any questions, please use the Q&A box or the chat box to answer those throughout the webinar, and then we'll get these asked at the end to Aditi and her team as well. So brilliant. Without further ado, then I'll hand over to Aditi.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you to the Giftware Association for organizing this webinar. And a very warm welcome to our audience today. Hi from Bangalore. It's a real honor to have this opportunity to share our knowledge of sourcing from India. And we hope to make this an interactive session. What I've planned for the next half an hour or so is that I will share an overview of sourcing from India, a little bit of its history and where it stands today vis-a-vis other key manufacturing nations. And also then move on to talk about Kalara and how it can help businesses of various sizes source from India. And then we have a short video. And then we'll move on to questions. Please don't hesitate to ask anything that you think might be helpful to you. It might be helpful to others as well. And hope that it will be a fruitful, half an hour for everyone that's attending today. So starting with, when I was thinking about sourcing from India, especially in the context of giftware, it really is a very vast subject. In fact, according to historians, the world's first long-distance trade happened between Indus Valley, which is current-day India and Pakistan, and Mesopotamia, which is current-day Iraq. And that happened in 3000 BC. So almost 5,000 years ago, the first goods that were traded from India to Iraq were actually textiles, jewelry, and pottery items. In many ways, it is this 5,000-year history that forms the foundation of the manufacturing industry, especially in giftware, and especially in the materials and categories that Kalara today operates in. That really is the foundation of our industry. And Consequently, it is this indigenous production practices, indigenous materials that have passed from generation to generation and continue to survive today, continue to be a part of our lifestyle today. And I think very interestingly, as we talk about sustainability and circularity and a more responsible way of consumption, all of that is suddenly a lot more relevant today. And that's a little bit that I want to share with you. Because of this history that India has, I think what's also interesting is that every state, every province, every region in the country has a specialization in a craft or a material or a technique that has been passed on over centuries. In fact, for instance, the Taj Mahal, the very artisans and craftspeople that built that, it's a lineage from the very same craftspeople that continues today in Agra. So the marble chopping boards, the brass inlays in stone and other stone and marbleware that you see around the world in the big brand stores, they actually are from descendants of that same generation or same base of craftspeople. And likewise, every region in the country has a specialization. So whether it is the jute from Bengal, whether it's the black pottery from Manipur, which is in the northeastern part of the country, whether it's different kinds of stonework from the east of the country or from the south of the country, or it's textiles in different weaves, different embroideries from different parts of the country. It really is, it really requires an understanding of which part of the country specializes in what material, what technique, and what is the kind of skill labor force or artisanal community that is available to produce that. Today, of course, there's been a fair bit of mixing of techniques, mixing of craft forms. But often when people come to us looking to produce something, have sort of a design concept, we first start with which part of the country is best suited to produce this kind of a product. And then we take it from there. Some of these, I think, the world, some became a lot more famous, like the block prints of Jaipur, I think is very synonymous with India, or even the Madras Plaid, I think particularly in the UK became very, very famous. But actually there are more than 130 craft forms in the country that form the basis of the gifting and home industry in India. In fact, even recently, the government of India announced a new foreign trade policy. And as part of that, one of the many initiatives is promoting better infrastructure and manufacturing, export-oriented manufacturing clusters in these regions that have historically been known for specific materials and craft forms. We are, of course, very happy to be part of that movement. However, moving on to modern day India and where it stands today, vis-a-vis very, very strong manufacturing nations like, of course, China, but also Vietnam, Indonesia, and the neighboring regions. I think India is in a very, very interesting juncture in its economic history. It is today the 5th largest economy on the world. Poised to become the 3rd largest very soon. It has a very, very young workforce, and especially over the last 5 years has seen tremendous digitization and improvement, especially in supply chain infrastructure. And that boosted productivity. That has led to several benefits, and I think it will continue to make India more competitive. I think what's also interesting is that India has a newfound confidence, not just in its capability to produce and build and make, but also in its capability to think and design. And I do believe that much like Scandinavian design or Japanese design or European design, contemporary Indian design, which is rooted in amalgamation of many cultures, over thousands of years. I think there will be a very unique, very interesting contemporary design language that we will also see come out of India in the next decade. So I do think that even geopolitically, India is in a very favorable place. India has actively signed free trade agreements with multiple countries. Australia was signed in December, UAE just before that, and we're really hoping that we'll have one with the UK very soon. The most recent one with Australia actually resulted in more than 95% of the products that Kalara specializes in, and that I think is pertinent to the gift fair industry, actually goes to Australia today at 0% duties. And we're quite hopeful that it could be very similar once the free trade agreement with UK culminates as well. There are, I would say, several things, but I think three really most important factors I would think that definitely place India at I wouldn't say at an advantage straight away, but definitely at a very strong footing vis-a-vis sourcing from other countries today. Number one is because of the labor-intensive nature of production and the materials that India specializes in. India is able to do customized products with lower MOQs. And what that means is that new brands or brands and retailers that want to launch or expand into new lines are able to do so with lower MOQs, more efficient inventory, less waste, and offer an exclusive, unique offering to their customers. So definitely, I would say one huge advantage in many, especially hard goods, is definitely low ability to do customized products with lower MOQs. The other very unique advantage, I think I already alluded to, that India offers is because of its abundant skilled labor. Our wage rates in India today continue to be relatively lower. Of course, cost of life is lower, but vis-a-vis China and some of the other countries, in fact, we continue to have low wage rates. And as a result, lower cost of production. But it's interesting because the nature of production in India, which is again handmade, eco-friendly, impacts artisanal communities in a very significant way. As I mentioned earlier on, a lot of this production actually happens in the same locations that it's been going on for generations and centuries. So this kind of production actually enables employment in local areas, unlike newer industries in electronics and IT and other sectors that actually force migration. This kind of production supports employment in smaller, in more rural or semi-rural or semi-urban parts of the country. And that is where there's a lower cost of living, lower wage rates, lower cost of production. It also lends itself to, I think, very current and very relevant themes in today's consumption. One, of course, being sustainable consumption, and the second being, impact-led retailing. Both of these, because again of nature of the production in India, especially again in semi-urban, semi-rural areas, is a really powerful story. And finally, I would say, I think the third, I don't know if the audience here would agree, but I do think that culturally, India is, and Indians tend to be more flexible in their service offering. And therefore, it's not just the production and the price, but even in terms of accommodating packaging and digital content and supply chain and various other aspects. Indians often tend to offer greater flexibility. because we understand different buyers have different requirements, different countries have different requirements, and I think it comes perhaps from a culture of hospitality as well. So if I were to leave you with, three, I think, advantages that India definitely has, and I think will continue to strengthen, apart from its inherent strength in design, materials, and craft forms, is number one, lower MOQs for custom products. Number two is lower wage rates, resulting in lower prices for a good product, and a flexible service culture. Having said that, there are, of course, challenges that one has to navigate when dealing with India, as do we. I would say, I think one of the big challenges in India, because again, the length and breadth of the country and the fragmentation of vendor base, the fragmentation of skills that exists across the different parts of the country, and the associated festivals and holidays and considerations and languages and all of that, it makes it challenging if you want to work across various different materials and techniques. And of course, from a language standpoint. One of the other things we realize, while India, of course, is getting better and better in their understanding, and the manufacturers getting much stronger in their understanding of quality and design translation. We do work with also some of the smaller producers, and we realize that there is a role required in translating design, in translating quality expectations, in translating an understanding of finish details. There is, while there is, of course, been a lot of improvement, I do think that we have some ways to go when it comes to that. I think apart from that, sometimes it's hard to get, pricing transparency and a few other aspects, which is, once there is a sort of a landscape vantage view to materials, to quality of materials, to consistency of steps in the production, I think that sort of results in a better understanding of pricing transparency and, of course, therefore quality. There are some of these challenges to navigate, but I do think that it's definitely a lot of positivity and optimism that we're seeing in the industry. There's a lot more awareness around governance, around compliance, a lot more women entering into the workforce. Certain sections, of course, in artisanal production have traditionally been dominated by women or traditionally been dominated by minority communities. But we're definitely seeing greater education. When we visit some of the factories, we see not just the son, also the daughter on the shop floor and learning from their parents and taking responsibility in different parts of the business. So we're very hopeful that that improvement will continue. Moving on to, I suppose, I guess before I move on to Kalara, I'll also talk a little bit about some of the areas or some of the categories that India has a very, very strong footing in terms of share of global trade. In some of them, India is a leader or in the top 3, and in some of them ahead of China as well. You may know some of this. India is the world's largest exporter of knotted and handmade rugs. I think most of the rugs and carpets that you see in the brand stores around the world, if you see under the hood, it's made in India. A lot of the natural stone and marbleware that you see around that you see India is a leading exporter. Products made from stone and marble. Turkey, of course, is a leading exporter of stone and marble in itself. Solid wood, another significant strength of India. Wood in different finishes, wood with different techniques. on it, including carving and printing and etching and painting and enameling and various other techniques. Textiles, India is a very, very strong textile player today. China, Vietnam, Bangladesh, of course, are also very strong players. But apart from apparel, even in kitchen and table linen, in yarn dyes, in various new materials, recycled materials, cotton, of course, linen. India is very, very competitive in its pricing, in the variety of techniques and the variety of designs that it offers today. Where we are situated in Bangalore, we're actually pretty close to the apparel and textile manufacturing cluster in India. Few other categories that I can touch upon that might be relevant to the gift industry. Jewelry, India is very, very strong, one of the world's largest exporters in both fine as well as fashion jewelry. A lot of brass, silver, semi-precious stones is what India is known for. In fragrances, potpourri, incense, India is extremely strong. Again, the world's largest exporter in some of those categories. Metal, I think I didn't cover metal, sand-casted, and other etching and other hammering and other techniques on metal. India is very, very strong at. Within Kalara as well, we actually supply to a very wide spectrum of retailers, from small boutique owners that have specialized offerings to mid-sized importers to the very large value retailers like the TJX, Home Goods, Burlington's, Bells, and we're able to straddle these price points and advise or recommend materials, finishes, qualities, even when we do actually supply to importers who in turn might be supplying to retailers, including value retailers. We're able to offer pricing that meets that requirement and is competitive vis-a-vis China as well in many of the categories that I spoke about. I do think that as we go forward, we're also seeing an interesting hybrid of handmade techniques combined with mechanized techniques. So for instance, we are seeing interesting new print techniques being applied on natural materials. So digital printing, but on wood or marble and stone, or UV printing. So we're seeing an interesting blend of the essence of natural materials and handmade techniques, but combined with more modern techniques that give more versatility to designers, to brand owners. And I think we'll see a lot more of that going forward as well. But yes, I hope that that sort of gives an overview of just the history of manufacturing in this sector in India, as well as some of the strengths that India offers. I'll go on to talk a little bit about Kalara and how we can help businesses source from India. The way we have structured ourselves is as a one-stop shop for any buyer, any retailer, whether it's a small boutique owner or it's a very large retailer or it's a mid-sized importer. And we understand that the requirements of each of these segments will be different. And however, we have developed a vendor ecosystem as well as different models of fulfillment that we believe are relevant or will be relevant to different segments of consumers or to buyers that we work with. We're strictly B2B. We don't do anything that is B2C. But when I say one-stop shop, we have the capabilities to do from product curation and design to finding the right vendor, producer, manufacturer, or even artisan to produce those products based on the quality and price expectations that our buyers may have. We We will then work with them to curate the right products if required, or design, develop products, sample products. We negotiate prices, of course, and because we have a very vast range of products and vendors that we work with, we have pretty reasonable pricing intelligence that we've built. And once an order culminates, we work very closely with the vendors, with monitoring production. We do all the quality inspections on the ground in the factory locations, and then we manage all of the shipping ourselves. I did miss to mention that Kalara is in fact a subsidiary of Reliance Industries. Reliance Industries is one of the largest companies, over $100 billion company in India. It's also India's largest retailer. And what that allows us is that it offers a couple of advantages. One is that we have a very vast vendor base to tap into. In fact, tens of thousands, not just the 1,000 that are empaneled on our Kalara platform. But also it allows us, we have shipping contracts with the major shipping liners and the major shipping service providers in the world. So whether it's a Maersk, MSC, CMA, CGM, or even the FedEx and DHLs and UPS, we have direct contracts with them, and consequently we're able to offer a landed price to our buyers, manage the end-to-end shipping and logistics, so that if buyers like the product, they like the quality, they like the price, and they want it delivered to them at a particular location, wherever they may be, at a particular time, we take care of everything that happens in between. In the US, we currently also have warehousing options from where we can ship. We don't currently have that in the UK, but we hope to possibly in the future build that as a service if you feel the UK buyer base will value that. So as I said, we have different fulfillment models for the different segments of buyers, but for everyone we try and structure it around a one-stop shop service. And we're true to the flexibility that we think India offers, and we try to understand as best possible buyer requirements and work backwards from that. We do have a very, very short video. I think it speaks a little bit more to the artisanal aspect of some of the work that we do. Not to say that we are limited to that, but I have to admit that a lot of my personal passion and I think my team's passion is definitely centered on that. So we just play a very short video. I think it just really just summarizes a little bit of what Kalara does, and I think hopefully that'll give some visual context to what I've shared. stop it. Yeah, I thought I'd share that because while we do operate in a lot of categories and a lot of materials, not all necessarily handmade, but personally for a lot of us, our motivation stems from some of that work that we do with the artisans, and I thought I'd share a glimpse of that. I think I've spoken for a long time. I'm going to open it out to our audience for questions that you may have. I did also want to share that I will be in London in September 5th to 12th. I will be visiting the two fairs that are happening at the time, but I will be spending some time meeting with buyers and retailers like yourself. So if any of you would like to meet in person, I'm happy to do so. I will share my details with Chris so that he can share them onwards with you. But I hope that was an helpful overview, and happy to answer questions.
Thank you, DT. That was brilliant. A great overview of Kalara and sourcing from India as well. So if anyone does have any questions, now is your time. Otherwise, please do get in touch with us, and we are more than happy to make an introduction to the team at Kalara and to get any of your questions answered. So got a few questions here. I know you mentioned there was a few challenges from sourcing with India. How will Kalara kind of help a company or a business trading with you to overcome those step by step on the way?
Right. So one of the most important things that we try to do is that we have like a single point of contact for the buyers or the buying teams that we deal with. Sometimes it's a large company, different categories, and in turn within Kalara we have different teams. There's the supply chain team, there's the vendor onboarding team, there's the product development team, there's the sourcing and fulfillment team, and we manage the complexity of identifying the right vendors from various aspects. Like I said, whether it's the right capability, the right capacity, right standards that if a buyer has a particular requirement. So finding the right fit is one. Second is all of the coordination that happens, especially if these are customized products, all the nuances, the color matching, the printing, the packaging, all of that translation that it entails. Working across vendors, ensuring that that translation is done correctly. We recognize, for instance, if there are multiple SKUs being produced across multiple vendors and factories, we have a single nominated packaging vendor so that everything that goes is consistent, the colors are consistent, and so on and so forth. So manage entire coordination on every aspect of the production is something that the Kalara team takes care of, as well as all of the supply chain, all of the documentation, all of the compliances, all of the consolidation of that, the origin customs, the destination customs. We take care of all that with an understanding of what does it take to import a certain material into a certain country, what compliances does it need to adhere to, and so on. So it really is like there is one person you talk to and everything else is taken care of. And therefore, likewise, we take accountability if something goes wrong, right? And then there is, we will then be accountable for whatever, whether it's damages in transit, we are accountable. So it's one-stop shop, also one neck to choke.
No, that's great. Thank you. And I think as more and more of our members and brands look to source from India, it's something like that they're looking for. They don't want to be dealing with lots of different people. It's just the one person that can get the job done. And as you said, taking accountability is a big step as well in today's world. has had a few questions in from the audience. What are the key product sustainability trends that you are seeing in India at the moment?
Definitely recycled materials is significant. I mean, a significant trend in it. To me personally, in many ways, it's going back to lifestyle many years ago. But I think recycled yarn, recycled fibers, even waste, recycled both pre-consumer and post-consumer waste from factories, garments, wood, even stone dust, things like that. I do think making newer materials out of waste materials, definitely a very significant trend, and we're seeing interesting innovation in that area. Aside from that, I would say that I think we're seeing a few newer stones. The other day, some of our team members were visiting Agra that I mentioned earlier, and I think there's newer stones, newer finishes, newer materials that we're seeing come into kitchen and dining, come into decor that we hadn't seen earlier. We're also seeing more finishes. Okay, my team here is sharing with me a few more references. I think, interesting, materials from the landfills or burnt as stubble are being collected into products that we are making and that would otherwise end up in landfills. So I do think recycling, circularity, big theme. India is going to play a role in it as well.
Yeah, and I think that's across the board as well, isn't it? It's what a lot of our members are looking for, and it's what we see in our Gift of the Year competition, which is great to see in trends come through. And it is, recycled materials. I think this year we had water bags that were recycled into actual bags, rucksacks and stuff. So that was really interesting to see. So it's good to know that Kalara are already on it and using that. I've got another question from the audience is, how can someone find out about your stationery offerings?
Right. So we do have our website, kalara.com, but we don't always have everything that we offer on the website. So if the requirements, so what I would recommend is if the requirements are for smaller quantities, then when I say small, I mean sub 50 units, then the best place to look at is our website. But if the requirement is, upwards of 100, 200, 300 pieces, then the best way to do it is to reach out to us and share with us some brief, some direction on what it is that you're looking for within stationery. Even if you don't have a visual reference, you can share maybe materials, maybe a little bit about the brand, your brand aesthetic, and then our teams will actually curate a selection and share it with you, and also share with you possibilities of what we can do, the materials we work with, the kinds of prints and techniques, and so on and so forth.
Brilliant, thank you. And kind of staying along that vein, what is the process of working with Kalara? Does someone have to set up an account? Is it a direct contact, or how does that work?
Right. So again, we have two primary channels of and how we engage with customers. Our e-commerce channel is one where buyers can come up, sign up, create an account. It's really simple and straightforward. And then an account manager gets assigned. The other more traditional way, especially for slightly larger size or people who have more customized requirements, is that they can just write to us and we will then set up, we'll assign an account manager, and then we prefer to start with a meeting to really understand the buyer's requirements. We do that virtually, of course, but just understand what are the buyer's requirements and share what we can do, and then take it from there in terms of next steps.
Lovely, thank you. And in terms of businesses that you work with, do you work with all size businesses from, as you said, artisan right up to kind of multinational?
Absolutely. That's, I think, one of the, going back to the flexibility, we have tried and we continue to strive to have different models that can cater to different sizes of businesses. So, we span quantities from as low as 1 unit, which is enabled through our website and the inventory that we carry in our warehouse, to I think the most that we've done is 45,000 units to an SKU. So we span a very, very wide spectrum of, size of buyers that we work with. On the smaller end, boutique owners, new businesses, even interior designers, hotels, restaurants, sellers on Shopify, Etsy, and so on and so forth. And then on the other end, very large retailers like the Home Goods and Burlington's, Hamleys, and brands like that.
Brilliant, thank you. So a huge range there. So brilliant, lovely. I haven't got any more questions, but if anyone does have any further questions or they may want to ask them offline, then please do get in touch with the team at the GA and we'll make an introduction, or direct through Kalara. The details I'm sure we can share with you on the follow-up email. As I mentioned before, this is recorded as well, so if you do want to go back and rewatch parts of the webinar, then it will be on our resource library. But I'd just like to say thank you to Aditi and the team at Kalara for joining us today and telling us a bit more about Kalara, and also thank you to everyone for joining us today. Again, I know everyone's so busy at the moment, so it's really good to have you here. And again, thank you, and yeah, we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you everyone who was able to join us today. And please don't hesitate to write to us, and I hope that we can be of help to your business. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.